Okay, ready, steady, off we go. So, Friday lunch, perfect time for some design thinking. Hi everyone, my name is Ina. I'm an events coordinator at Lift 99. Today we're going to talk about design thinking for startups with Iryna, founder and CEO of ZIRITY, and she is also our community member. We have a Q&A session in the end, so if you have any questions during the event, please write them below the video, wherever you're watching us, on Facebook or on YouTube. We will cover them all. Now I'm passing the microphone to Iryna and hope you all enjoy it.
Hello, everyone. I'm the CEO and founder of ZIRITY, and also I'm the advocate for design thinking. So that's the only mean of social communication, and I hope you find it well to listen to our topic today. And I hope you're dealing well with isolation because it's taking such a long time. And it's a very strange form of communication. So I'm going to try my best to be as entertaining and as informative as possible. So a short story, my design thinking started when I was doing a brand strategy and marketing, and there was always something missing. There was always a point where some people knew better than others, and I thought it's wrong. So design thinking came into my life answering to most of these questions and how to build things that people love, things that people need, and why do they need them. And I deeply understand why they need them. The same story happened with the startup, as it started as an idea from something I thought is cool. And then I went into a discovery that a lot of people might need it. And there was a lot of pivots and a lot of changing of the concept to understand how to solve the exact question people have, the exact problem people have. So no matter what kind of stage of the company you have, or you're just thinking about the startup, I hope this one will work for you. If you don't know about the design thinking, I highly recommend you to learn about it. I'll give some tips and tricks today. If you know about it already and you don't know how to use it, and is it right to use it at this stage, or should you tell it to your team, let's discuss this point also. Oh, I think my earrings are so strange. So let's discuss at this point also, and we'll touch this topic. I'm going to switch to my presentation a bit from time to time, so it gets you involved and show you some pictures and show you some diagrams. So let's start with the topic. Just a second. Just a second, I'm going to switch to the screen. Yes. So let's go to design thinking topic. This is the topic of the day. Design thinking is the approach which was named this way in one university. I'm going to mention it later. And it was borrowed from designers. The way the designers are solving problems, the way they put the knowledge and the patterns together to create something new. That's where design thinking comes from. And the only thing you should know about design thinking is the human-centered approach. The human is in the middle of everything in this approach. It means that if you don't know the answer, look at the human, search in the human, follow the human. Because everything we ever create and do, we do for humans. In the end of each single product, no matter you create a B2B solution or B2C solution or any other kind of business model you have, there's a human who is a beneficiary and who is using your technology or your product. The design thinking started in Stanford. There's a beautiful school named D School. It's the Hasso-Plattner University. Just a funny fact that Hasso-Plattner is the founder of SAP company. And he came to Stanford and said, I want to create the university, the institute that is focused on design of everything, that has the most free approach to design that was ever created. So this school is the course that you can take without any points, And yet it's full of students because people are so in love with being involved in the design and deeply thinking about design. So all the information I'm going to show today is from Stanford or from the school, Institute of Design at Stanford. The craziest story that is the best example of design thinking. And I think if you have ever heard about design thinking before, you might have heard the story. So this is like the best and the easiest example, yet this is the one of examples that explains design thinking in the best way. Imagine the MRI machine. I have been in MRI a couple of times in my life, and I hope you haven't. If you haven't, it's very cool. Don't do that. Don't ever have the reason to go there. But the MRI machine is a very has a very heavy, loud noise due to the moving of the parts. So the designer of the MRI machine once came to a disco with a question: how can I do something better about the MRI machine? That was the engineer of General Electric. So he started the discovery about his MRI machines, and he went to a children's hospital. And guess what? Children were crying and not willing to go to the MRI. Yet a lot of them had diseases and had to do a checkup with the MRI machine. And he understood that, and then he discovered the data that almost 80% of the visitors of the hospital, the children that had to visit MRI machine, had to be sedated. So the design challenge, and that's how we call something that we have to solve, this design challenge for him, was how to create an experience for kids using the MRI machine, so they would not have to be sedated. So they would love it. They would love the experience. And guess what he came up with? He came up with the world that can be created basing on MRI machine. And they designed each single room in a children's hospital through US in different ways. One is a submarine, the example is shown here. The other one is a pirate ship. And the story was that the doctors who are inviting you to the MRI treatment, they basically look like pirates or like guys from a fairy tale, and they're telling you, now you are joining a fairy tale world, a magic world of the submarine. The result for this practical application of design thinking was that less than 20% of kids in children's hospitals are sedated now in US due to the fact that this approach was taken and applied by many hospitals throughout US. And so kids are enjoying the MRI and they're loving it to do that. I think this is the best example because it shows the practical need of additional creativity that can basically change the experience and be applicable to normal facts of life that we have. So let's go through the stages of design thinking. Design thinking is the 5 steps methodology. The steps are empathy, definition, ideation, prototyping, and testing. The thing I want to highlight is that design thinking is not a linear experience. You can always go one step back. You can always double check yourself. You can double check your hypothesis. You can check out if you had the right idea in the beginning. But the thing is that the process, how design thinking is built and basically why it works so well, is this is a controlled creativity process. Basically, for each step of the process, you have limited time, pre-organized rules, and you know what to do and what you have to come out with. And this is one of the most important things in design thinking. You might ask me, where should you use design thinking? So design thinking approach is best used when you have those kind of wicked questions, those hard questions when you don't really know the answer, because they have too many things which are not certain. a high level of uncertainty. The modern VUCA world where there's high level of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And as well as for startups, you might ask me if we are in the beginning, shall we use design thinking? Yes, for sure, because design thinking will help you to minimize efforts and to minimize risks, because all agile approaches and all holistic approaches to managing and managing creative ideas and innovative ideas are aimed to minimize the risks of idea you're thinking of or idea you're trying to make. So design thinking can be applied to a startup idea in the beginning stage. To minimize the risk, to identify what you're doing and who is your customer, design thinking can be used in a company that is thinking about creating another product inside the company, or to go into the other market or into the other product segments, as well as it can be used for the startups on highly growing stage, because there's a lot of factors. As we know, sometimes pandemology is happening, sometimes isolation is happening, and then you have completely different, that you need to be really fast and adaptive, to find out the scenarios that might be the best for your customers. And this is the methodology that you might use to identify the best possible way to pivot, to change, to create another services for your customers, so you can survive the period, or adopt your service if it has the new reality that was never happening before, like now and today. So design thinking can be used for different stages of the companies, as for startups, so as for corporations and the classic way of companies. But for startups, the most important, and I will touch the subject later, is this question I've been asked a couple of times. Should we apply a lean startup approach or design thinking? My answer is you should not ignore any of them. And we're going to come up to it a bit later. Now we're going to focus on 5 stages of design thinking. So it's empathy, definition or focus, ideation, prototyping, and testing. Everything starts with empathy. You may ask me why. And here is my first tip and my first sincere suggestion from the deepest part of my heart. It's Brené Brown. If you have never heard of this lady, I highly recommend you to read any of her books or to listen to her TED Talks. Brené Brown is the scientist who is following the journey of discovery of human vulnerability. And she is an amazing lady for the best reason. She thinks that empathy is the most powerful tool we have, and being vulnerable is the key to be very empathic and to be able to feel with the other person. So what is the difference between empathy and sympathy? And I think many people are misled when we're talking about empathy. Yes, a lot of talks, discussions, or statements are about empathy. So what is the reason for that? Being empathic means to be able to feel the other person's pain, to feel with the other person. Yet being sympathetic is understanding that something has happened and being sorry for it. So why being empathic is critical for design thinkers and is critical to understanding your customers. Because empathy helps us to see the person, to live with the person. Wherever you create a product, at whatever stage you are, empathy is the key to understand your customer well. The way to be empathic at the first stage of design thinking process is to talk to the people, You can do that through interview. I suggest and recommend to do a deep interview. And the best thing you can do in an interview is listen and never limit yourself with scenario of questions. Just go into the discussion, follow the discussion, feel the flow, and hear the other person. So you have to talk to people, you have to talk to your customers. Many times on my personal observations, there were moments when I was seeing somebody who really liked the product that the startup did, and the person was their customer, and they were trying to give a feedback. Yet people were not able to listen, to hear, and to understand what exactly the person meant. So the discussion ended up with, oh, I'm trying to tell you this. Like, I want this better. This is so cool, but this feature is not working. I hope it's going to be there. And the startup was answering, oh, yes. Thank you so much. Yes, we're thinking about it. It's in our backlog or in our roadmap, which means nothing. The thing that I suggest you to do and recommend you to do the other time somebody will give you feedback on your product or service is when somebody is coming up and saying, I love your product, I used it, I had an experience. Ask them, how was it? Ask them to tell you the story, because the power of the storytelling from customers is priceless. When people are telling stories, they somehow, during the flow of the story, revealing something so deep and important for them, something that we might call an insight. This insight is critically important to understand the need of your customer. And I said it before, and I'm going to repeat myself, and I'm very sorry for it, but you can use the way, use the interviewing way for both, for any scenario of your business, for any business approach. B2B, B2C, your customer can be business. And if business gives you feedback, if person wants you to tell the story, and even if it's not your direct client, or not somebody taking decisions, but it's somebody in the company using your product, listen to them and talk to them. Let them tell you a story. The second way to be empathical and to discover your customer is to observe the behavior. The best way to see something that the people doesn't understand, it's the things that we don't understand as knowledge. It's called tacit knowledge. So the way to identify this tacit knowledge is either to ask people to tell the story, or to observe the people in their natural condition. So in the moment we observe the people, in the process of engagement with the product or the service, we can see and identify some crucial things which either people nor we have never thought of, because we can see something which is uncomfortable and something that can be done better. So the silent observation, being in the real natural conditions of the other person, is the way to discover the customer. And I would have to mention that it's no matter what stage of the company is, this act, the 3 steps of talking to the people, observing the people, and walking in the shoes of your customer is never late. It's never useless. You always have to come back to it and try to do it, because this deep understanding of your customer is the diamond that you always have. That's something that can help you to become to build a better product, to become a better company, and to come up with different the other innovation that will bring you further if you're an already grown startup. So observing behavior of the customer, observing behavior of the person is very important. If you haven't never done it, please do. For a simple example, people who are working with lawyers, and lawyers, a lot of experiences I had with lawyers when we were doing design thinking workshops is when they saw how people interact with the products they do. Like, have you ever saw how people interact with your contracts? do you know what they're feeling when they're reading a contract? The same way and the same approach as if you do a notebook, if you create any kind of hardware, if you create a software, it's so important to know how people are really acting with your product, not how you think they act, but how they really act. And that's opening a horizons of what you can do better. And the third, not the least, the least but not the the least, the last but not the least part is walking in their shoes. If you're creating a product or a service, you are creating it for the person. To understand this person, you have to walk in their shoes. You have to try to do the same process, to be open-minded, to get rid of your borders, and to do the act that you are thinking the person should do with your program, with your solution, with your hardware, whatever you do. So talk to people, make the interview, let them tell a story, observe customers and people. And I tend to call them people in the first place because we are humans in the first place. Observe people, their natural behaviors, and walk in their shoes. Do the same process that you want people to do with your product. In the end of the empathical step, we come up with the number of insights. Basically, we discover things we haven't known about the people, or that things that are interesting about our customers. And identifying the needs you're serving is the crucial thing to create the product that works well, the solution that is, really solving the problem. And this is what identifying the problem is something that is happening on the step 2. Basically, we come up with the number of things we discovered and then put them in the clusters, and we try to define and focus. We try to understand what are we really solving? What do we really want to do with the product? So coming from needs to ideas. And so coming from define step 2 to step 3, which is step 2 is define process or focus stage, and step 3 is ideation process. The thing I want you to remember is that when we are being creative, so basically design thinking is the separated steps. In the first one, you deeply look into the person. In the second, you focus, you cluster the ideas, you identify what you want to solve. And the third stage, which is ideation, you bring up the creativity. It's important to mention that design thinking process, and the key to design thinking, is multidisciplinary teams. You can bring to the table people from different backgrounds, people with different experience, because the way it works is that when you bring those people to the table, when you bring those people to the room and you involve them in the process, they have different views on the same things. And there's different views, there's different optics that people have, gives us the broader, the fuller, the bigger experience, the bigger vision, ability to see how many points of view there are and to feel the problem from a different side. So main thing in ideation stage, there is no limits. There is no bad ideas. The key to creative process is that the creative ideas are built upon each other. So you don't have to limit yourself. You don't have to think that there is only one best solution. What I recommend you to do is to get into the creative process, bring as many people with different backgrounds as possible, and give them pure freedom. Pure freedom to work out any kind of ideas and to build ideas on each other, because the statistics are that there's only one great idea out of the 100 ideas. So to have one great idea, you have to bring at least 100. To have two good ideas, you have to bring 200 ideas. So you have to get into this creative process and get rid of the limits. And then in the end of the ideation process, what you do, you select the ideas and you put them together to understand if this idea is matching our criteria, is this idea is matching the problem we choose and identified on the definition stage. So let yourself free, bring as many people to the table, and remember that difference of experience is always making us richer. And this richness is very, very important thing. This richness is called radical collaboration. From different life situations, what I've experienced is that ability to see the problem from different angles and ability to get rid of this, stigma, your own stigmas, because we all love the products we're doing. We have spent so much time doing and finding the solution that we purely treat the solutions as our babies. So this radical collaboration concept is the way to get rid of this blurred vision, because when we collaborate with people with different backgrounds, they give us different vision on the problem, and they give us an ability to see more. And the way they do that is so natural that we don't hate them for that. So we don't feel resistance. We don't, say, no, it's not that. We have to learn and to be, I say it's like training, right? You have to train your creative muscle as well as you have to train your listening muscle. So be open and be able to listen to the feedback. The best way to get it is radical collaboration. So whenever you're discussing, and the point I'm trying to make up here is that I really suggest you use some of the tips and tricks, even if you can never decide to use the full design thinking process, but maybe you can take some tips and tricks and use it inside your day-to-day work, inside your day-to-day process with your team, to enrich your experience and to find a better ways to deal with problems or with some challenges that you might face. So the tip here is radical collaboration can be used anytime, whenever you're coming up with any challenge and you don't know where to go, you don't know what to do. Talk to somebody with a different background. Just people walking by in the office and a co-working space, or Lift 99, or just walk on the street and observe people, ask them, start a discussion, show them your product. The feedback you're gonna get will make you look at the problem differently. So aim for that. Aim for this feeling to look at the problem differently. The next stage, the fourth stage, is called prototyping. So the first one was empathy. Second one was definition or focus. Third one is ideation, is when you go free with your ideas and select the ideas in the end. And the fourth stage is critical and very important. It's called prototyping. And the principle is super simple. Every single idea can be done using $5 and 5 minutes. The key mission here is to fail as cheap and as fast as you can. Use prototyping whenever you can. So many people skip prototyping stage, and this is such an unfortunate thing. And this is why I decided to put lean startup and design thinking together and compare it throughout this online session here, due to the reason that people are forgetting about prototyping. The way the prototype is the simplest way you can show your idea. So basically, you can draw it, you can use Lego or any kind of toys that you might find with your friends' children, your own children, or your sister, brother. And using this simple stuff, you can show or explain what you want to do. And prototyping is the way you make the ideas physical. You can basically understand what can be wrong about them. So this switching from creative idea to physical idea is very important, as you can identify the bugs and see the exact bottlenecks. So never skip prototyping and try to prototype as much as possible. And I really suggest, and I constantly tell it to everyone around me, that we should prototype more. And not so many people are doing this, but everybody can prototype. You don't have to do the MVP or go to MVP stage or code straight away. You just have to prototype. Just draw it. If you draw it and it doesn't work, most possibly it shouldn't be done. It will not work even if it's coded, if it's created already. Everything can be prototyped, everything. And please remember that the applicability of this one is really simple. Coming back to the point I'm touching over and over again, no matter what stage you are you just, thinking about your idea or just thinking about your startup? Are you, just building the product and gaining first customers? Are you in a growing stage? Are you in a mature stage of the startup? Or you're a part of a corporation who wants to think about, creating a startup inside their company, or creating, bringing the innovation to their team and company and product? Remember that whenever you are, prototyping is the key, because prototyping is the bringing creative idea to a physical world. And this switch is the learning experience of your life. Is the cheapest way to understand what can be done better. The last stage, the fifth stage of design thinking process, is called testing. So empathy, definition, ideation, prototyping, and testing. Why we should always test? Because when we show people our ugly prototypes, and I heard this in one of the lectures, and I love the idea that when you bring your ugly prototype to a person, the person somehow thinks of you like, these people doesn't know enough, so I have to tell them my story. I have to, make it better. So people are so empathical and so keen to start to tell you how to do your prototype better. And this testing stage is the cheapest way to get the feedback. Basically, this iterational approach is very common within lean startup methodology and design thinking. So you create a prototype and you show it to the customer. You get the feedback from the customer, you create another prototype, and then you show it again. This is the way to get the feedback on the as ugly and as simple prototype as you might imagine. Because you ask, you listen, and you test, and then you repeat it again. So something to remember is that design thinking, as well as the all agile approaches, is not linear. It's not a linear process. It's the process which you can switch to any stage, in which you can switch to any stage at any point of time. You can always go back and forth to make your product better. Yet the knowledge you gain on each single stage is so enriching. It's so different. It's the different way to look at the same things, because the power of design thinking and the power of the process and the power of methodology, to be correct, is the following. You're not using your own vision. You're not using your own personal brain to look at the problem. What you do, you are trying to find more critical and more open way to see the problem. So applying what I said to the last stage of testing, don't be afraid to show people ugly prototypes of your products. Just go out and show it to the public, show it to your customers, and gain the feedback. Because this is the cheapest way to identify where the bugs are, where the problems are, what should be done better, what should be corrected. And don't be afraid to do that. It's so hard, it's very scary, and it's never late. Whatever you do, whether it's feature, new feature in your product, or it's a new product, or it's a new idea that you might be thinking about and you don't know if it should be done or not, just don't be afraid to test. This is one of my favorite slides because the criteria for successful solution is something that we, there's always a discussion about it. And this picture is taken from IDEO and their CEO workshop materials. The innovation lies between 4 pillars. User desirability, it's when your users really want it, and this is what we identify on the empathy stage. We identify the problems that people have, the needs that they have, or the pains that they have. Business viability, it means that this thing really can be done as a business. And technological feasibility, it's technically possible now to do it. And innovator reliability. And this one I want to touch separately. As me personally, and I hope you as well, so a lot of startups or a lot of founders who are talking about their startups, yet I always have this question on the background: how reliable is this person? Do they really understand what they're doing? And this question applies to me as well. I don't know if I'm reliable. I don't know if I know what I'm doing. I don't really think that anyone knows for sure. But what we should do is we should try to bring ourselves through critical thinking, and we should try to apply as many critical approaches as possible, so that your vision and your idea and your solution would be as needed, as realistic, as serving to the problem or the pain or the need as possible. And that's the way how you can build the products that are, having this kind of high level of support. This is the way, this methodology and this approach and this critical thinking about yourself. And this is why innovators' reliability is one of the pillars that brings out the innovation, is that you are not blinded, you are not, deaf, you are able to see through, you are able to feel it, and you're able to listen to your customers, to listen to the world, to feel the world in a way. So the way to feel the world is design thinking. One of the ways. There are many other ways, many other beautiful agile approaches that is recommended to be used. And yet I really wish you to discover design thinking and learn more about it, and maybe get some tips and tricks, as I said before, from the process to bring them to your normal life and to make them a part of your routine. So subject I really want to touch here is Lean Startup vs Design Thinking. And I hope that many of you heard about Lean Startup approach and hopefully you heard about design thinking. So are they comparable? Are they different? Are they the same? When they should be used? What is the best way to use them? That's something I want to talk about now. Let's look at the process for Lean Startup. The process for Lean Startup is when you have it's the way you can make the evidence-based decisions. Coming back to the process. Basically, the idea behind Lean Startup is that you collect the data, you experiment, and the constant iterative experimentation brings out a relevant data to choose the best possible solutions. And Lean Startup methodology is best used when you are already in the growth stage, when you already have your customers and you are in expansion stage. Why? Because this is the way you minimize the risk. This is the only way to apply data and to experiment using the less the less possible way to fail. Yet design thinking process is a bit different. As I told you before, it's not iterational. I want to mention that it's a bit, the picture I'm showing now is a bit different from the one I was showing before, yet it's the same. It's the tactical stage, forming the point of view, which is definition process, ideation, prototyping, and testing. It's not non-linear, so you can, switch between the processes. And the idea behind design thinking is to create solutions people love. How do you do that? You do that through a deep understanding of the needs of your customer, through an ability to look into your customer's life, into your customer's habits, and build something that people will use and love, because that would solve their problem. And I love this picture from boardsofinnovation.com, and I highly recommend you to visit the website. It's how do design thinking and lean startup methodology relate. So design thinking is the process that is well applicable in the beginning stage, when you're just an early company, when you're still, looking at your idea from different sides, looking at your solution from a different side, trying to make your product better, looking at your competitors, trying to understand if the market will need your product, and they call it the problem space. So basically, when you're in the problem space, and that can be done at any stage of the company, if you have the problem space, if you have some problem that you've faced within your company, and you're trying to understand, how we should solve it, trying to think over the ideas and to work out the ways to solve it, you can always use design thinking. So design thinking is the most applicable when you're in a problem space, no matter if you're an early stage startup or a company in the growth stage. And solution space is when you already have a solution, and what you're trying to do is to make your product better, to grow it more, to go to more geographies. It's the most applicable methodology is lean startup. Is when you use data-based, evidence-based experiments to make a decision. This is the way you minimize the risks of losing within building your product. So solution space is lean startup methodology, problem space is design thinking. We're still having, I'm so on time today, which is quite surprising. We still have 17 minutes, and I think Iryna is coming up.
Yes, Iryna is already here.
And I have a last slide. So to make the world a better place, you have to be more empathical and able to be critical about yourself, to look into problems deeper, and be open to new solutions and new ways.
Wow, that's a cool one, a very cool one.
Oh, I want to stop the share and see you here.
Okay.
I'm still here, no?
Yes, you're still here.
Okay.
The screen sharing stopped, but you're here. Thank you, Iryna, for the insights and advices. That was very awesome. I love the part with fairy tale of submarine. Very cool.
Thank you.
And
that's the classical story, by the way. It's like everyone who ever talks about design thinking always telling the same story. Yet I think this is the best example. So if you haven't heard about this story, this thing you have to know about design thinking.
Wow. Well, I haven't heard about it, but that's very awesome. A note for our audience, guys, we would really, really appreciate if you could give us a short feedback on the event. The link is in comments. So let's maybe move to our questions part, okay?
Okay, sure. And I also want to mention that the things that we're recommending, I would just highlight in the lines and just share it in the comments and give it to you guys so you can share it with the with the text under the video whenever you keep it.
Yeah, would be awesome. Okay, so what sources would you recommend to get to know with design thinking a bit better, maybe for beginners?
What? Okay, can you repeat the question again, please?
Yeah, sure. What sources would you recommend to get to know design thinking a bit better for beginners?
Sources.
Yeah,
sources. There are a lot of courses online. So if you want to, get yourself into design thinking and involve your team in design thinking, I would suggest to go and follow the course. It has IDEO has the university. IDEO is the company that is in the beginning of the design thinking methodology. So basically, two brothers created the idea company, which is design of everything. It's called IDEO, and they were working with Steve Jobs on the iPhone and iPad. And then they created Hasselblad University. So that's how design thinking is so much connected to IDEO. So I suggest IDEO U or courses on Coursera. A small tip and trick is that during the quarantine, isolation, and pandemic, whatever you call it, there are a lot of courses are free online. So if you haven't heard of this, please go to edX, and you can find a lot of courses about that. Or you can read a book. And as well as I mentioned before, it's a board of innovators, the website. It's for Russian speakers. There's a big website. I'm gonna put it into data. So you just have to understand the flow and then follow the instructions, and you're just gonna get there. Read the books. There's no good books on design thinking, but there is no, truly. Like the design thinking is something, it's the process, it's methodology. So basically, the best way to become a good design thinker is to do the process, it's to follow the process. And that's the way you discover things or experiences or, hints that is not there.
Okay, that's very awesome. Another question is, does design thinking work with all subject areas?
For sure, design thinking works with all areas. Yet you always have to be critical, right? You don't have to use methodology as one pill for everything. It's not a painkiller. It's the methodology that makes the creative process structured, and that helps you to answer during to very wicked and complex questions. So it applies to any businesses, it applies to any industries, yet it has to be applied smartly. You don't have to use it all the time. You just have to use it when you really need to answer some wicked question or some, hard solution. Or you just think about, is this feature needed? Is this, business process, can it be redone? Can we optimize it? So yes, it's applicable, yet it's not the way to do it all the time. And I'm not a fan of it.
Yeah.
Because the magic would be lost.
Yeah, it makes sense, absolutely. Another question is, how to prototype and test when you are doing service and not yet have it developed as a concrete product?
Okay, how to prototype and test when you are?
When the product is not developed as something concrete.
Okay, so when the product is not developed. So this is the perfect way and perfect application of design thinking, because if the product is never concrete, like you ask anyone who ever done the startup or tried to create a product, if they have ever thought about this product, how it came out, no. In the beginning, all the products are looking completely different because we're using our own stereotypes, our own knowledge, and our own cliches to think about how it should be done. So the thing that you have to know when you don't have a product is what you are serving. Yes, who you are serving and what you're solving. So identify your customer and the need you're serving, or the pain you're serving, or the problem you're serving. So trying to solve, and do the simplest prototype possible, and then ask 5 as random, 5, not so many, 5 as random people as you might find. It means always start with your mom. Start with your mom. Then I always go to my grandma. If I can explain it to my grandma, pretty much it's gonna work.
Yeah.
So go to your grandma. If you don't have a grandma, I can borrow you mine. She'll be happy to help you out. Or just find somebody from different area. Like if you're creating a product for IT specialists, or if you're creating products for kids, go and show it to somebody from a different area, and this is the part of a radical collaboration. So do a simple prototype, draw it, do it from your Lego parts, draw it on your computer, make a collage, draw the process in lines, play it as the scene, and this is the way you can do prototype. And try to ask the person for a feedback. You cannot imagine how much magic happens in this part, because people have a highly developed imagination as the part of their survival kit integrated when they're born. So people are always so keen to help. They really want to help you out, so they give you so much feedback. Some of it is not needed, but some of it is really cool, and you will never get it the other way. And this is the cheapest way.
Yeah, that's true. I also heard this advice about going to your grandma or mother and asking whether they understand it. If they do, then you're good to go. Yeah,
I know, but some people doesn't have a grandma, and when I say it, I always try not to be just go to find out somebody who is not really modern, and that's fine. If you can explain it to them, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Most of all, you're gonna succeed.
That's true. We have 2 more questions. Where would you recommend to look for the best cases of using design thinking?
Where would I recommend to look for the best cases using design thinking? Well, I will be just true to myself. Why do you need cases for design thinking? You can find them on the in the Discord the section when you can find. I'm gonna follow with links, so I'm gonna send the links of the cases. You can find them online on different websites. You can find them on the IDEO website. I can send you a couple of those. Yet the way the problems were solved, it's like a support thing, right? If you look at the cases, you think, oh my God, this is so cool. I have to learn it, but this is so cool because of the idea behind it. You have to know your customers, and there's never too much of knowledge about your customers. So I'm going to send you the links, and I'm going to follow up with the places where you can look through the cases done with design thinking, applying design thinking methodology. Yes, I can highly recommend you to try the process and to try the small tips and tricks that I try to highlight, or you may find interesting during the talk, and just integrate them in your life. And then you might find that there's magic happening. There's so many things that you haven't heard of or you haven't seen, and it's fine. You're just a human.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The last question was whether you can name a few projects, but would be awesome if you grade.
No, I can name a few projects. You have to know that design thinking is it's like a methodology and an approach. It's a part of agile approaches that's widely used between the corporations, and design thinking is used by IBM, by a lot of Fortune 500 companies as the day-to-day approach, because part of the whole design thinking process and philosophy behind it is the way you think, is being able to hear more, to focus on human. This is the part of the heart of it. It's the human-centered approach. So this is something that is not, when it's applied or it's widely used throughout the companies, it's not something they do as a workshop, it's something they apply every single day. So the results of the beautiful companies, of the beautiful products the companies create, is basically the result of applying design thinking throughout their day-to-day work life.
Mm-hmm. We have one more question on our YouTube.
Oh.
Do you think that cyberpunk is a new design thinking way? It's a science fiction genre.
Cyberpunk is the new design thinking way. I'm going to answer to this question, but really strangely. I'm sorry for the other audience who might be not interested in this answer. But I think the biggest punk I know is Mr. Jules Verne. I don't know how it's called in English because I was reading it in Russian when I was little. So Jules Verne, right?
Yep.
I don't know English. I'm sorry if my English is broken. So for me, he was the biggest punk. And I loved sci-fi since I was a teenager. And to tell you the truth, I think that there was a cyberpunk. That was so cool because he somehow created a submarine experience. It was called Nautilus, and it was amazing because he created it in the age where ships were just coming up.
Yeah.
Not ships underwater. So I think that science fiction and fantasies and mixing of styles and understanding and deepness of understanding that all we're doing is we're living in a postmodern world, and the main categories of the postmodern world is ability to use everything we knew and mix the rules to create this multidisciplinary formulas and forms is the coolest thing. So I think that design thinking is everywhere, because design thinking is ability to understand things from a different perspective. And in this way, cyberpunk is the new design thinking, if we talk about the movies. But I think that everyone who is looking at the problem differently is design thinker. Design thinking in the end is just a buzzword. It means nothing. It's just the word that is used to explain something. But you can have to be creative and open and being able to listen and critical and try not to be blinded and very adaptive, because living through today's world, adaptiveness became one of the most important parts. And yet we are all, I think, lacking the adaptiveness and lacking the knowledge how to find it out and where.
Yeah.
I hope you answered your question. I'm sorry.
I think
I'm so missing social communication that I'm just putting it out. Sorry, guys.
But that's good that we have this event. Cool.
It's very good.
So we can talk to people. People, please talk to us.
Somebody will think I'm crazy, but it's fine. I'm really crazy. I have 11 weeks of isolation.
That's cool. That's cool. Okay, I see that we don't have any questions left. So thank you a lot, Iryna, for sharing these tips and tricks and amazing advices. I hope you all guys enjoy it. We will have the video in our pages and Facebook and YouTube, so you can go back to them and see it again. Now I think it's time to say goodbye.
Yes, bye-bye. And I'll share all the information and also answer to all of the questions, supporting them with the links to the cases, the places where to read about design thinking, where to learn about design thinking, and what courses are free now.
That's awesome.
Thank you so much. Have a nice day.